All right. So I'm going to test your knowledge for the first couple of minutes to make sure that we understand. What is SDLC? Who wants to answer that question first?
Software development lifecycle.
Okay. And can you explain a little bit more than just, I mean, you explain what it is means. So what do you think, what SDLC, and you say software.
It's a process that defines the various stages involved in the development of software.
Okay, and then what are the stages?
Requirement analysis, planning, design, implementation or coding, testing, deployment, and maintenance.
Okay, so requirement gathering, design, and then coding.
Testing.
Number 4 is testing. And number 5 is
deployment.
Release and deployment, same thing. No, I'm missing something probably.
And maintenance.
And number 6 is maintenance. Okay. Who can tell me why do we call this life cycle? Why is it even life cycle on the first place?
Most probably because through these 6 stages, a software is developed. Because in this, this is how a software is engineered.
Okay, I'll give you a clue. Okay. All right. Let's see. This rings any bell? Okay.
Yeah, through this process, software is created, and isn't it that the thing, like through all this circle, through this cycle, software is it's planned and created and then tested, and it goes if after release, if it needs to be maintained later on, if new requirement is gathered, then it goes through the whole cycle again.
Yes. You got it, but let me explain it more clearly here so everybody else get it. So what happens is that software development lifecycle is a methodology that involves all of the stages. So we can call them a phase or stage in this case. So these are phases. First, you have to have a requirement to build something, right? Once you have the requirement, you want proof of concept. You want to see what it looks like. Okay, so that's when you have a design to visualize and see exactly how it will look for you. And then you have implementation, which is writing code, and developers, they write that code. After that, we have testing. This is where we do it. But then we come in from the very beginning because we need to understand the requirement in order for us to carry the testing. We want to make sure that we get involved right here on the stage 1. So that way we can not only help them writing this requirement, but also be able to provide early feedback on requirement gap, requirement analysis, and also be able to write some of the phases for STLC, which falls under right here, which I'm going to show you guys. Then you have release and then maintenance. Maintenance means is that your software needs an upgrade. Your software needs something. Maybe it wants to keep up with the current technology. That means maybe, for example, Facebook. I always like to give example with Facebook. Everybody has it. So now Facebook wants to, let's say, implement login feature that will allow Twitter users to come in and log in without having to sign up, right? So the first thing is, this is maintenance, right? Because it's existing application and they want to just add a new capability, right? In order to stay up to date with the current technology. Now, the first thing is you got the requirement gathering where they will talk about technicalities. They will talk about what needs to go in and what are the, what do they want? If the user come in and they click on Twitter, after that, they have to enter their username and password, and then only then they can log in. Will they see a sign up after that or not, right? So these are the requirements they will have to write. Once that is done, a designer or UI designer, okay, they will, UI designer meanings like user experience designer, okay, so they will take this requirement and then they will design it to make it look the way it should be, okay. And then developers follow both of these documents. This is a design document and this is going to be a requirement documents, and then they will write their code. As a tester, what do you follow? Who wants to answer this?
Yeah, as a tester, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as a tester, we need to follow. We need to clarify the requirement is matches or not. First, we need to decide what kind of method we use and what kind of information we need. Then we have to plan for design, testing design. Then
Okay.
step by step we can do, and if there is any bug, we can back to the developer and inform that. And is a developer again is set up, and tester is again has a test.
Okay.
And if there is no bug, so tester gonna go to the UAT release and also make a comment for the release note.
Okay. So
for approval for testing.
okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. You said a lot. So let me break it down because you said the whole story. Now, here, tester have a choice between design and the requirement. Sometimes they will tell you, hey, if things belongs to design just and requirement doesn't add up, that means design was created after requirement was created. Therefore, there is some communication gap. So use design as a source of truth, but also verify before you go ahead and pass your test. That means if you see there's a difference between design and requirement, just simply reach out to the developer first, and then you can reach out to the rest of the team to say, I found a small discrepancy. The design document and then the requirement document are not adding up. At that point, you want to clarify that. You don't want to be in the maybe situation. Maybe they forgot and you pass the test, and now everybody's going to look at you and say, why did you pass? Why did this test pass? Okay. So this is just common sense, what I'm telling you right now. Nothing to do with the process. You have on the testing, you use either one documents. If you have design document available and they don't have requirement, then you use this. But if they have requirement, then you use requirement. Lastly, it goes for release. And once the release takes place, maintenance starts right there, because after the release, you start to get feedback from the end user. End user will come back and say, okay, I don't like Twitter. This Twitter has been giving me a lot of headache. I want to be able to log in normally. And Twitter has been there. So now your maintenance would be, okay, move Twitter to the left side so user doesn't get distracted by Twitter, for example. The same requirement. Now they have to still talk about the requirement. They have to still design it, then it goes for coding, then for release. So it's like anything and everything in this application. Every time you think about improving something, every time you're thinking about adding something, every time you think about removing something, you still have to write requirement, write design, code, test it, and then release. So now you get it, like the circle is no matter what, nobody's going to be skipping. No one is skipping these stages, period. Okay. It has to go through these phases. Therefore, it's a life cycle, right? Isn't it? Because every time you deal with any sort of changes, that means if it's an agile and you're doing weekly basis, you still have to follow this stages. You have to think about requirement first, and having the requirement solid, have the team understand what you want to implement, and after that you want to talk about the design, how it's going to be looking like, and then go for coding, testing, and release. And so it just goes on and on and on. It's like an infinite loop if you really think about it. Okay, so as long as that, in this case, as long as Facebook is making money and they're up there, this phase is going to continue for them. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about us. Okay, this is software SDLC is basically for the whole team. Requirement is done by the BA, business analyst or product owner. Design is done by UX designer. Code is done by developer. Test is done by QA, just like you. And then release is done by CMT, configuration management team, or DevOps team, right? So I mean, old saying was CMT, right? And now its new name is DevOps, right? So DevOps do their releases. Maintenance is done by your team. So again, they will have to gather requirement, design, code, and test, and then it goes for release. All right, with that said, let's move on. I'm just reminding you guys with this process, so that way we have a clarity. The next thing is, and I'm probably going to talk about all three life cycle, right? So the next thing is, when you do testing, and we call engineering process, you're pretty much saying, okay, we have a secret sauce that nobody else have, right? When you say that, definitely you want to talk about and break down what you do. Let's say, for example, I'm not a technical guy. I'm a manager, and I bring you on board as a tester, and I'm very curious to know exactly what steps that you follow in order to carry out testing. And now you come to my company first day or second day, and I'm asking you with curiosity, hey, what are the process that do you follow in order to say you're done testing from the beginning to end? Can you tell me? And that is a good question, because if you are a QA and you said, I don't know that means you're saying, pretty much you don't have any experience at all, right? And it's not a good looking, because that's like the basics of basic. If you, if you work in, for example, let's say, how do I give an example? Let's say you work as a doctor, and they come in and you can't even, you freak out of blood, then obviously you're not a doctor, right? So it's very similar thought process here. So what is your engineering process in testing, basically, and what do we call? So we call that, let me change the
Software,
color. Okay, go ahead.
software testing lifecycle.
Software testing lifecycle, correct. And let me just put that here as TLC. Again, why do we call a lifecycle? We'll talk about that because it's very important. Testing lifecycle. Now, if you ask me this, right, and you tell me like, okay, why are we going to be repeating this? I am ready to repeat this course, at least these subjects, 100 times until everybody get it, because this is a core. This is basically heart of everything that you do. Okay. This is you as a tester. Imagine you don't know what they are, right? That's going to put us in a very bad situation in an interview. So that's why I will repeat as many as time as we need to in order to make sure that everybody gets it. So first item in your software engineering, what will you engineer? What is the first stage that you will follow before, pretty much in order to do the testing? Anybody wants to?
Requirement analysis.
Requirement. Study. Okay, I'll put easy words here. Analysis, a study, same thing. We got the next one.
Test planning.
Test plan, for example. So, and then the next one.
Test case development.
Test, we skipping something.
Test design.
What else? Anything you guys can remember? Give you a
I
hint.
think test case development.
Test scenarios development, right? Creating test scenarios.
No.
I will explain. Okay. Sometimes we like to combine things and it doesn't really match up with the phases, but I will explain why we need that. And actually number 3 is pretty important. If you don't do the number 3, you may end up writing test cases, which is create test case, right? Test cases that may not be relevant to your requirement. Number 5.
Test in environment.
Test execution. Yeah. And execution is part of like preparing environment, making sure that you have everything and everything at all. Number 6, and I'm going to jump through because again, this is not the first time we're doing this. And okay, after the execution, we do log and track bug, because that is after this, right? And lastly, okay, that brings up to bug lifecycle. So we'll talk about another lifecycle right after this. Let me change the color real quick and then I'll explain. Okay, this is that. So there's 3 life cycles that you should be worried about, right? And then we will probably, okay, that's yellow. Okay, that's fine. All right. So as you can see, within this, we have another life cycle, and same thing. It's going, oh good, I'm not a good drawing. Okay, then let's go this way. One, this and this. So 2 life cycle. So SDLC is a life cycle, but inside of SDLC, there is another life cycle, right? And then inside of STLC, there's another life cycle. Did we cover that? Or this is the first time you're hearing?
Covered.
No, we covered that.
Okay, we covered. Okay, good. All right. So now here, where is automation? Because, you know, mainly the reason why I got to this far is because of automation. So where is automation fits in? Do we skip automation in this case? Where is the part where we do automation? Anyone? Where do you think potentially we can
Execution.
Create test scenarios. Test plan.
Create test scenario, exactly, right after test scenarios. This is where we can say we can introduce automation, because when you create test cases, that's manual. Okay, that is manual test cases. So when you create test cases, that is manual. Now, as soon as you have test scenarios created, you can choose and say, okay, I want the first 20 to be, let's say you created 40 test cases and you chose first 10 to be automated and then 30 to be manually tested. Okay, so as a QA engineer, basically what kind of determination that you made? Let me just get rid of this thing because I need to write it here. Okay. Okay, and then test automation. Okay, so first thing first, when you do manual testing, which is test cases, and I'll give you an example of manual testing. 1 second. Okay, here is your example for manual testing. Okay, you first land on this page, the first time user, you haven't logged in ever, and this is the first time you went to JetBlue. You're supposed to get this cookie accept all cookies, and you are simulating this to make sure that this actually appears. The test case is to make sure that this wording and this appears along with this button right here, right? So in order to simulate that, you decided to use Chrome incognito mode, so it will simulate that this is the first time, because it doesn't save cache or cookies. Okay, so therefore every time you open up incognito, therefore it's going to simulate that it's the first time ever visited. If I don't use incognito and I already have logged into JetBlue, then it will not show this, right? So there is positive and there is a negative test case. The first test case is basically to see if it shows, which is positive test case. The next one is that we want to make sure that it doesn't show for the user who already have been logging in. And we don't want to annoy the user with this message all the time if they already accepted this. So now, as a manual tester, you would be coming in here, you go and then you see this is happening exactly based on your test case. And you read this, no problem right here. You see a link, you click on the link right here and you open it up. And just to make sure that the link opens, so in this case, link also opened. And because we never accepted it, it still showed this box, which is fine. And then we have another link, you tested that link, and then finally you click on accept cookies. And now you're able to freely find flights and book. Okay, that was the manual execution. You use your brain and judgment and determination to execute and find any sort of issues with this, and that's it. That's manual test case. I just executed for you. Now, automation is something is that we don't do that ourselves. We basically tell our code to do it, which will be second portion of your class. So now when you create test scenario, what is the difference between test case and test scenario? So I can tell you basically how to decide what needs to be created manually in automation. Anybody want to tell me the difference between test scenario and test case? Nobody? All right, so let's first of all, as a tester, right, because this is your bread and butter. Do you agree with me? Because this is what all you're going to be doing. Managers and companies, they will be hiring you because this is what you do, right? Regardless of automation, regardless of manual testing, you still have to do these things, right? Number one, number two, number three, you have to study requirement, understand the product to make sure that you can effectively come up with a plan. Then you write your test plan if you need to. And then you create test scenarios, which is basically what? And then we have test cases, and then we execute to make sure that you can find bug and track those bugs. Ultimate goal is to be able to find issues and bugs and report them, right? That's exactly the goal that you have. But in order to get there, we have to do this many things. The difference between test scenario and test cases is that test scenario is basically described in a very brief way. Maybe a couple lines to say, okay, as a user, I would like to go to JetBlue and be able to see the cookie options if I'm the first time user. That's one scenario. Second scenario is like I'm a user, already have accepted my cookie, and now I don't want to see that cookie alert again in my JetBlue website. So you got two scenarios, one is positive and one is negative. If you were to write test cases for those two scenarios, you then have to provide the steps, details, and everything. So the difference between test scenario and test cases is that test case is very detailed. You want to write your test case in a way that you can grab somebody from Fifth Avenue, and it could be a homeless person who never have used your application, and they should be able to follow your steps to execute the test case and tell you if there's a bug or not. And that's how detailed the test case should be in a perfect world. Okay. Now, perfect world is the keyword here, right? Sometimes it doesn't happen in some of the companies that I worked with, but in a perfect world, at least the best practices here is that you want to write the test cases with details, the steps necessary, and in order to make sure that anybody can execute. Then scenario is basically you're mapping out, you're writing an Excel sheet, for example. Scenario doesn't need to be shared with anybody. This is you writing it in an Excel and say, okay, I'm going to have to write a test case for this situation. I'm going to have to write a test case for that situation. So to give you an example, right, let's say, all right, let's see. Okay, let's say this is you in Queens and this is Manhattan, and this is where you want to be. Okay. Let's do some tree and buildings, whatever, right? Okay, let's say building. Now you want to get here because your friends are waiting for you here. Now, how many possible way can you get there? Each one possibility is a scenario, right? So first you go straight with the train only, right? That is a single scenario. Second, you do train and bus. So T and okay, and B. Okay, let me see. It's not letting me drawing this. Okay, B, train and bus, and this is your second scenario. Now you can possibly imagine there is. If I tell you this, that there will be hundreds of scenarios, can you believe me, or do you feel that this is something that you disagree? If I say it's going to be hundreds of scenario, somebody want to challenge?
Yes, it could be. If you want to take broken down it could be.
Right.
But
now, can you actually tell your friend, this guy, or can you actually tell him what specifically to use? No, because he's a free man. He has free wills. he can choose to take a helicopter if he's rich enough to here. That's another scenario, right? Now this guy is healthy and he likes jogging. He can be running to this location. Anything can be possible. Now, if somebody tells you, tell me exactly what are the combination possible way that this guy can get there, it'll be a lot of combination. For example, you got train and bus, and the other one will be bus and train because he took the bus first. And then the other one will be like okay, biking and taking the bus. Then you got taxi and then bus and then train, and it's just going to be a lot, right? Exhausting, right? And it's going to be a lot of scenarios. Now, when you do that, and I'm sure Socrates covered this pretty nicely, when you do this kind of scenario, you have to make sure you're doing it for your work. You don't want to end up creating so many scenarios that are useless scenarios, right? You want to make sure that you can find realistic scenario, so that way you don't have to deal with 500 test cases or 500 scenario for a single requirement. You want to make sure that you can you don't want to choose something that will be highly unlikely, right? For example, taking a private jet from Queens to Manhattan. Is it possible? Is it realistic, or this is something like totally once in a blue?
It's easier to find a unicorn than that.
Right. Now, if you're writing test cases, and let's say that is one of the scenario, right? But that scenario is so highly unlikely, we call them edge case. Okay, we call them edge case. They will tell you edge cases you can ignore, but they will also tell you if you have time, then do the edge cases also. But then sometime when you go to the developers and say, hey, this is not working, but it's an edge case, he's going to say, okay, let me tell you one thing. Out of 5 billion users from Facebook, only one guy maybe will try that. Now, if that guy cost us some money, it's okay. It's not as much as doing pretty much implementing something for the whole world just because one guy will do something, you know. Similarly, banks and other institute, they know they will lose some money, right? There are ways to prevent fraud for the application that they're creating, but they're not going to go to that extent, is because the amount of time and energy they have to use to do that, it will be more expensive than people just taking the money and doing fraud. Okay, so that's why edge cases and cases that are not realistic is not being covered, and you don't want to cover that. So you should be able to answer that question when they ask you like, hey, did you miss this case? You're going to say, well, I thought this test case is edge case, and none of our users is going to do this, so I didn't cover it, for example. All right, so similar to that, a lot of test scenario. Now, scenario you're writing and you putting it in an Excel sheet, because why? Because then you can later create test cases. When you create test cases, this is where you have to make a decision. And if you are working in a company and they allowing you to make that decision, because mostly if you are an automation engineer, you are the person who's going to make a decision whether you're going to be automating or not automating. And I'll tell you, as an automation engineer, what you should be automating and what you should not be automating, right? So in this case, you have to choose before you even create the test cases. Before you even get to that point, you have to decide how many test cases you will automate and how many test cases you will manually test, right? Which is test cases. It's because you don't want to do both. You don't want to duplicate your work. You don't want to create test automation and then also test manual testing. What needs to be automated is that if a test case needs to be executed often, right? For example, every week your boss will say, hey, how's that workflow? Is it working? Is it still working? And things like that. If, let's say, as a human, if you have a test case that takes so long, but then with automation it takes less time, then you want to automate that. Similar to that, there are other criteria. Like, for example, when you have test cases that deals with large test data, large sets of test data, for example, Google testing. You cannot simply just search 100 item in Google and say your engine is working fine. You need to be able to search hundreds, if not millions of keyword to say, okay, 80% of the time Google is responding correctly, therefore we will consider that as a success. So similar to that, you will have to make a determination what test case should be automated. Now, what should not be automated is a more important question, because if you try to automate everything, you're going to waste so much time and you will get a lot of headaches, right? Because think about this way, just because you can automate everything, should you be automating everything, right? And the answer is no. Just because you can, you shouldn't, because you need to make sure that the automation is worthwhile. Okay. The purpose of automation is because it saves time. Now, if something takes you forever to make, then it's not saving any time. Okay. And the other thing is that if something takes for you to maintain, it requires constant maintenance. You have to go in there and update your code constantly because the automation is unhealthy. Then you shouldn't be automating that, because that defeats the purpose of test automation. Lastly, what should not be automated is, I'll tell you, because some things we human do better, right? And when I say the positioning, when I say the colors, when I say that like this look and feel, you see hovering and it changes the colors and stuff like that, this is look and feel of an application. We do better as a human than machines, right? So that shouldn't be automated. So you should be saying look and feel, you shouldn't be automating. If you look for positioning, for example, JetBlue Airway privacy policy should be exactly in this area. Can you automate this? Yes, you can. But is it a reliable automation? No, it's not. What's going to happen is the moment your screen becomes smaller, now we have a failure. The test will fail. The moment maybe you're running on another browser, your test will fail, and it will be extremely fragile. Maybe you're running your test in the background. For some reason, you decided to move around a little bit, and now we have a failure, right? And lastly, the way that automation sees this, it doesn't see exact location. It sees what it is inside of, okay? There are code that I can show you, and it's automation looks into that. Let me open up a little bit for you. Okay, this is HTML, and this is your CSS, which is style. What makes this look good, right? HTML is for positioning. So if you just click on this guy, and we know exactly this is inside of a, this thing is inside of a span, which is a tag, and then this tag is inside of a div. So I can say inside of a div, name this, inside of a span, I should see this text. Okay, that is extremely fragile test. Okay, anything changes in your application will break, and therefore maintainability of your test case is very, very high. You constantly have to go in and make changes. So therefore, I would say look and feel, leave it to humans. Okay, look and feel, you should leave it to the humans, and you shouldn't try to automate everything. And that is a good interview question, by the way. What can be automated? Should we automate everything? And at least my observation and expertise says no. All right, so that's where we are, test automation. The next portion will be, again, like once I finish with our bug, log, and track, I don't know if somebody covered this. I'm gonna go anyway. I like these topics, actually. I like this because that gives you tester as a core. What you stand for, what you are fundamentally as a tester. This explanation will help you to be that person. Okay, automation is a tool that helps you to save time. That's about it. Okay, it doesn't make you just a tester. You have to be a tester fundamentally to be a good QA, and whether that is test automation or manual test cases. Okay, so never ever look down on manual testers if you become an automation guy. Let's see. Okay, so let me just change the color for bug. Okay, bug, I'll choose red. Okay, so now you have this log, bug, track, and now somebody tell me about the bug lifecycle, if we covered it and how it looks like. And I'll share this as a PDF with you guys at the end, since I'm writing this pretty nicely so far. All right. So somebody tell me the life cycle of a bug. I'm gonna just go ahead and go ahead.
Bug life cycle is a software testing is the specific set of state that defect or bug goes through in their entire life.
Let me stop you for 1 second. Okay. I want to know from you as a human. I know maybe you studied this and saying the definition. Yes, definition helps to articulate your answer, but I want to know, what do you understand from the bug life cycle? Okay, so the first thing in bug life cycle, let me explain. I don't know if anybody covered this, but I will do it. The first thing happens is when you execute your test, you find a bug, right? So you log that, right? Log a bug. Okay, let me change the color again. It's probably better to, okay, green color. Okay, so you log a bug first, okay? And once you log a bug, let me find some shapes. Probably easier to deal with it. So you found a bug and you logged it. What will be the next thing, right? That is the important part here, right? So you logged it. The next thing is you're going to send it to a dev, right? You're going to send it to the person who's responsible for that, or somebody who is willing to fix that bug, or somebody whose code you are testing, or the feature they worked on, they're testing. So you send it to the dev, and then they do their testing, right? So assignment. So assign to dev, for example, right? And let me go ahead and shape this up. All right, so this is gonna be your next. Found a bug, moving forward, assign it to the dev. Now, what do you think the dev will do after that? If let's say dev go ahead and
The test executions?
they will execute tests, you're saying?
Yes.
On
Oh, I think fixed.
The dev is fix the
fix the bug,
bug.
right?
Yeah.
Who fixes the bug? Do you as a QA engineer fix the bug, or dev fixes it?
No, dev fix the
That
bug.
fix the bug.
Okay, so they will fix the bug. Okay, so now if they fix bug, okay, once they get it, they put it in, let's say, bug fixed, they work on it, they do their hard work, and they didn't sleep for the last 2 nights just to fix your bugs, and you find it, right? And he's pretty much being smiley and nice and saying, hey, I fixed it, can you take a look, right? And you look at it. Okay, as soon as that, when you look at it, what do you do?
Oh, retest.
Retest it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Retesting it,
As a
right?
as
So
a QA, we need to verify that it's fixed or not.
re-verify, retest, same. I mean, I'm putting in the same one word, okay? Retesting. So retesting that bug is something that you're doing. And then you find that even though that person who worked really hard and spent 2 nights without sleeping to fix that issue, you still see significant issue with that bug, okay? You still see there is a problem, okay? So what do you do after that?
Reopen.
Again,
Reopen.
reopen and log it as a bug again.
Okay, so now let me type that up right here. Reopen the bug. Okay, pay attention, because I'm going to ask you to summarize all this at the end and tell me like a story, okay? Like tell it like a story, like, okay, this is what happened. One day I was working and this is exactly what happened. And so make believe a story and tell me that at the end. Now, you see, you reopen the bug because you're not satisfied. As a QA, you could be, remember, you will be hard to please. Like all of the QA will be hard to please, because we want to be as critical as possible to our teammates in terms of accepting. It's because why? Is because if this bug somehow goes to production and they come back to you, they're going to say, who's the tester, not who's the developer. Okay. They're going to say, who tested this? Who approved this feature? Who have signed off? Which QA actually signed off this feature? And they will find you, and then they will ask you to write them an essay, you know. I'm not saying it's not a literal essay, but they want explanation. It's called post-mortem of a bug, right? They will want to know a story, why that bug was just leaked, okay? Why that bug was leaked to production. In this case, you will write an essay, almost like an essay. You're gonna write an email saying this is what happened. You're gonna write exactly what happened. If you missed it, you're gonna say lesson learned, and this was missed as on me. I didn't realize this edge case or whatever. And moving forward, this will not happen again. And I have taken 2 different action in order to prevent that kind of situation. Moving forward, we applied a scenario approval that needs to be done by lead to make sure that we don't miss any test cases. For example, like, you're putting processes in place because you're in a hot seat. Everybody's looking at you like, why did this happen? So now you have to come up with a way to own up to your fault. If this was your fault, you're going to own it up, and then you will tell them like, okay, this is my mess, and I will go ahead and do certain things, right? Certain steps. At this point, you guys, I'm going to pause it here, and I'll give you guys a 15 minutes break. I'll see you guys exactly at 9. When we come back, we're going to finish this, and I'm going to ask you the story, and then we're going to start writing some code to continue with our Java classes. Okay.
Sorry, I just have a question. When you say write a story, do you mean like just make?
Okay. All right. So today, hopefully, I hope to do something fun. This is just to keep the motivation going for automation, because it is a hard topic. It is not easy to just say, okay, we're going to be doing automation and it's done. So just want to make sure that things are fun when we do it, so it's easier to learn. Okay, that's the main important thing. The last thing we left here was reopen bug. Bug is not fixed and you reopened it. Try to come up with some story. But what happens if it's reopened? That guess what happened to that bug if it's reopened at this point? It directly goes back to the developer, right? But now what happened if, for example, I'm going to break out of the loop. Okay, so what happens if retested was done and it passed?
Close.
Right. So now it passed. Okay, so, and then this is if it fails. So I'm gonna have to create some boxes there. It may not be good looking, but two possible things can happen. One is pass, the other one is fail. Okay, and okay, failed. All right, the reason I'm doing extra work because I'm going to share this at the end with you guys. So all right, so if it fails, then we are reopening. From reopen, it goes to reassign to the same guy and say, hey, it didn't work. If it passes, what do you do next? That's my question. What's that? It will be closed. And somebody said it already. If you guys have any confusion, because this is something that you should not have confusion. This is your bread and butter, right? This is what you sell. You hire a plumber, he comes in and he doesn't know what a pipe is. Okay, and that's exactly the implications of this, how important this is, right? So far, look at this. Okay, we started with SDLC. This is the whole life cycle of building a software, everything necessary to create a software. But then when it comes about our part, because everybody has their life cycle at some point. Okay, so we don't want to go into their business. This guy may have his life cycle, this guy may have his life cycle, right? We don't care about those. We are testers. So in testing, we have STLC. I call it engineering process of testing. And if this is an engineering process of testing, we follow a series of steps in order to successfully finish and say when we are done. And then lastly, the end goal of doing all these STLC steps is because we want to find issues in our application. When we do find it, we log them, and then we assign it to the developer. And once developer fixes, we retest them. If it's let's say passed, then we close it and we move forward with remaining test cases. If it fails, we reopen. And then the reason why, again, bug lifecycle is a life cycle is because until this thing passes, until the test case or bug passes, it will continue to go in an infinite loop. If the developers continue to make mistakes, you continue to send it back. And that's what it is. We don't compromise in quality. And somebody want to tell me why we don't compromise in quality? Why don't we, developer is your friend. Let's say I'm a developer and I'm your friend, and we go and have lunch and everything, and we play games, and we go out and hang out and have party, whatever. And I wrote something. Will you compromise for me if you find some small issues? Let's say,
No.
why not? Let's say I want you to do a favor. Will
Oh
you
no, hell no. No chance in a snowball in a hell. No.
No.
Sorry, that's not like official language. No, because
No, but
you
then,
taught us on the first day, because there was a big accident on a China Airlines. It might cause even human life if there is a bug in a system.
exactly. It could be you work for Chase Bank, and let's say you forgot to test something where if somebody takes out $1, their account goes on negative regardless how much money they have. For example, let's say that this is a case that you missed to test, and now it goes live, and all of a sudden a person who retired, who probably a military guy, and he has $1 million saved up, his life saving, and all of a sudden he goes to his account, takes out $5, and it goes to negative, like whatever, right? Negative $1 million. At that point, he has a heart attack and he dies. Who's responsible for that? So it doesn't have to be an airline. It doesn't have to be an airline. The frustration that
responsible here is the tester, because he did the wrong test. He cannot properly testing.
morally the tester is responsible, but there are legally you will not be so much, because I just don't want to scare people like, okay, maybe you'll go to jail because you didn't test it properly. No, there is a series of testing goes in. After you, there is UAT. If you made a mistake, they shouldn't have, right? So somebody checks your work too. So it's series of people. It's not just a single person who will be responsible for that. The next
I think whole team is responsible, right?
Yeah. So developer makes the mistake, and usually developers, they will be like, oh, you know what, QA will find it, whatever. Because what's happening is that he may say, okay, this guy's lazy. Developers, I mean, I wouldn't underestimate their intelligence, is because what they're doing is that they're spending day and night, right, to kind of solve a problem, right? And finally they found a problem that was solved, but now they're exhausted. They don't want to do all the testing. They will say, okay, now I will like QA to come back and tell me what it is that I did wrong. And that this is the mentality of some of the developers, where there's, okay, QA comes back and tell me exactly what's wrong, I'll fix that. That is easier than for me to find and do the same amount of work. So that could be their mentality. So if you come back and you tell him what's wrong and he fixes it, we're good. Okay. But if you come back and say everything is good because you're my friend, you actually did not help him. You actually made him look bad, because when that thing goes live, they're going to also look at him like, okay, this developer keep on sending bad stuff. Somehow you were able to defend yourself, for example, then they're going to blame it on the developer, right? They're going to say, okay, this guy. So you actually didn't help your friend, somebody you really enjoy working with. You actually kind of hurt him in a way, because he didn't find his issue. What happens is that there is a continuous improvement that takes place. You find an issue, the developer will then learn from that mistake, and he will not make that mistake again. And then it will continue to go until the developer becomes very, very immune to these type of issues, where you will see at some point, whenever you test something, a requirement of that specific developer, he no longer has any bug after some time, is because he just learned from those issues, unless of course he is purposely putting those bugs out there, so that way he just wants you to have some work. It's a job security. So that is one. But in theory, in a perfect world, it will make them more and more smarter, because you're finding those issues, and therefore they will not make similar mistakes. Now this is the whole story, right? If you understand this perfectly, you still deserve a job, right? meaning you can be a QA analyst at this point, right? If you just, this is a summary version of it. Of course, I'm not going to say that this is something, this is everything that you need to know, but this is in a summary in a single page. What I have laid out for you is something that will make you into a QA analyst. Okay. This should probably give you a proper picture of what happens and when. Okay. So that way, this is, I hope this was a helpful demonstration. And all right, so with that said,
So
like
you're gonna share to us?
yes. So what I will probably do, I'll download this right now and then send you guys in this group. Let me see if I can do that.
Because of like this explanation, we can better understand it.
Yeah, no problem. So downloaded that. Okay, this is the downloaded version. Okay, right here. And then I'll just attach that to this meeting. So you guys will probably, it will show up, whoever is watching video later, it'll still show up. So you don't have to look for it anywhere else. All right, let's see. I'm gonna go to the chat, share a file from my computer. Okay. All right, so if everybody can see this right now, you will be able to download it and then later use. Okay. Any questions before I ask my questions? I'm gonna pick. I'm not gonna let you guys talk because I want to see if everybody paid attention. So those paid attention obviously will talk, right? So it's better to pick than give you guys a free way to answer this. Okay, let's see.
I have a question.
Sure.
So for when we create test cases, that could be for manual and automation both, right? Then we decide sort of that which one we should test manually and which one we should test, like we should do automation, right? But the test cases are for both.
I would say when you create your test scenario, that's when you decide. And then in your step 4, you choose which one you're going to work on, because if this is the final product, right, where you create the test cases, and the purpose of creating test cases, it means that you should be able to execute again at some point, right? Otherwise, we don't need to do test case. We just verify if it works and move forward. Why do we even create test case? Why do we create documents? It's because that document will be used at some point. And so if you created already automated tests, you don't need to create test cases. So you make a choice after you create scenario and say, okay, this many will be automated and this many will be manually tested, not after writing test cases. Some companies, they go ahead and write the test cases, and then later automation guys comes in and they review those test cases and choose which one to be automated. That's a linear process, not agile. So again, company to company varies. Again, like some company may skip the test plan altogether. Some company may skip the test scenario altogether. So if I sound different than Socrates when he went through this, is because he worked for a company, I work for a different company, and we have a different way of dealing with the STLC, which is good because now you have diverse experience. So if I said something that is differently than his, you just got additional information that you can use toward your interviews. Okay, with that said, no more questions. Let's ask, let me get a chance of asking questions. Maybe that's better. Let's see, with the list that I have here. The first person that I'm going to choose is Tina. You can basically give me a story about bugs, right? Bug lifecycle. The story can start like this. Hey, I was working so-and-so. Let's say you work for Bed Bath & Beyond. You found a bug, and then what you did is you assign, or you can say it the other way, which is when I find a bug, first I log them. Log them meaning you create them, you write them somewhere. Okay, you have to write them, Excel sheet or somewhere, whatever you want to write. Once I do that, I will then assign it to this guy, and then when they fix, then I'll do this, and then so and so, right? So come up with a story and explain to me this diagram. And you can probably like use the arrow to see what next. This was for Tina. So, and then anybody can be picked. I'm going to pick 2 more person, and then we're going to move forward with our coding portion of this class today.
Okay, so all right, so I would just make a random story. So okay, I was working on a product which was which wasn't working properly. For example, it didn't sound. It's supposed to make some for example, it's a toy, so it's supposed to make some sound, but it's not making any sound. So I had to give it to the dev, and he checked the product, and then
Product or the bug? We're talking about a single thing, bug, right? You found a bug. You first,
okay, yeah.
the first thing after that, you assigned it. The next thing you did, just like one step at a time, if you can explain. You don't have to create like a whole story. Like after I found bug, this is what happened. You can just say, okay, I found a bug. Then I assign it to the guy, whatever, whoever is the developer. And then he fixes it. I go ahead and retest that story, and it passed. So I closed it. And then if it failed, then you can say I reopened it. And then I had to reassign to that guy, and he then fixed it again. I retested again, and then this time it passed, so I closed it. Make sense?
Yes, yeah, all right. So I assigned to the dev, and he fixed it, and then I had to retest it, and then I see everything was working fine, and so it doesn't happen. It closed. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Next person. All right, thank you. Next person, I'm going to ask you a specific question. All right, that question is for Fatima. The next one is that the question here is that what do you do? What do you do when you find a bug?
What do I do when I find a bug? As a tester, the first thing I do when I find a bug, I check it's a duplicate bug or not, number one. Then I need to check whether it's in the scope or not. What the other thing I do? I'm missing something. There are 3 things I need to do.
Can you see my screen? You have a diagram that you can use in front of you.
Yeah, I see that. So after checking whether it's a duplicate bug or not, or it's in out of scope or not, after that, I will log it, and then I will send it to the developer. So the developer will fix it and then send it back to me. After sending it back to me, I will retest it. Once I retest it, if I don't find any more bugs, so it's passed and that story is closed. But if I see still there are some problem with that story, so I have to reopen that story and it needs to go back to the developer again. And until the story is fixed, the whole cycle will keep going like that. But if it's in the second time, in second iteration, if it's passed, so I will close that story. That's about it.
That's about it. Okay, perfect. All right, so this is an interview question, and like I said, everybody here should be able to come up with like anything that you cannot remember, create a story and you'll remember. That's why I'm asking you guys to give me a story. It's because otherwise you're not going to remember any of these. So if you kind of create a story about this, like for example, logging a bug, like what is the bug lifecycle? If I ask you to remember what is the bug lifecycle, you would not remember. But if I tell you, remember this story, you will be able to retell that story at some point. All right, I'm going to do one more person and then we move forward. Try to make it very short answer, the stages one after another, explain what you will do. And then we go from there. Rifat, can you explain what is bug lifecycle?
Bug lifecycle is when we, as a tester, find a bug or something is not working. So first we assign to...
Rifat, sorry, this was for Rifat. So,
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll give you a chance on the next question, but let's pick, let's pick Rifat for now. Seems like, okay, there we go. Okay, you're here. We can't hear you though. If you're speaking, you may have external monitor or anything like that. I don't know. All right, so we'll skip you, Rifat, because we can't hear. I'm gonna choose somebody else. And again, like Rifat, don't mind because I'm trying to pick somebody who hasn't spoken. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's do Raihan.
Me or Raihan?
Raihan.
This is me or Raihan, because my computer show most of the time is Raihan because my son is, I don't know, he did something. It's me, Sina, or
yeah, no. There we have a Raihan Kandakar here, so
okay,
yeah,
thank you.
no problem.
Hey, can you please repeat the question again?
The question is, what is a bug life cycle? Explain each stages of the bug life cycle.
Okay, so bug life cycle is something that if we find any bug, that means a defect within a software, then we check it, and if we couldn't fix it, we assign it to I don't know, DevOps, and if they are able to fix that issue, then we test it back to check if there's any um, if there's any errors, or if it's fixed or not completely. And if it's fixed, then we close it and we send it to deployment. And if it's not fixed, we reopen it and we log it back to the devs, and the cycle goes on like that.
All right, so some of the things that you said correct, but some of the things are incorrect about a bug life cycle. So we'll talk about those. When you said DevOps, when you said you fix it in the beginning, these are a red flag on an interview, because as a QA, as a tester, we don't fix things, right? And you could be saying millions of good things, and maybe you will say one wrong word that will throw everybody off. So answer is fine. It's just that it needs to be a more constructive and have to get a little bit more understanding. So I would recommend if you do a little bit of research on this one. I'll just do one more person before moving. Famida, you can go next, and then we're gonna start the.
Hi, so the same question?
For the, okay, let me ask you differently. When you find a bug, what do you do? What are the process do you follow in your team?
So when I find a bug, at first I would make sure I'll check it 2-3 times, and then after I'm sure, I'll log the bug, and then it will be assigned to the developer who developed the product, and then after the developer will fix the bug, it will be go back to me to retest the bug, and then I'll do the retesting, and then if it passed, I'll close it, and if it doesn't, I'll reopen the bug, and then it goes to the same cycle, assigning to the developer and then fixing the bug. And then if the bug is fixed, I'll go to the cycle of passing and then close the bug.
Okay, perfect. This is now if you ask me that, okay, let's say I'm the interviewer, I'm the manager, whoever, and you came for the interview and you said this answer, I wouldn't raise the additional question. I would move forward with the next questions, and this would be a satisfactory answer. So this was good. This was better than what I hear so far. All right, cool. So now let's move on. I think this is gonna be.
I said the same thing. You don't
sure.
like me. I can sense the thing like.
No, you did. It's just that the explanation was obviously the first thing you guys mentioned about rechecking is very important, and I think I mentioned that in the very beginning in our first class ever. And rechecking is important because you can get very excited when you find bug. For example, you found your bug for the first time, you joined a company, found a bug, and now you're going like really asking everybody, hey, this is about, somebody should be looking into that. They will get annoyed. Like nobody is excited for bugs except for you, because as a tester, you are excited. Maybe your boss is excited. Maybe your manager is excited, who's on the QA side. But when you bring this up to a developer, they're not excited about this, because now they feel somehow a little bit guilty, thinking, oh, how did we even miss this, right? So that's why it's very important that you do multiple checks, you do multiple attempts before you are logging the bug. That is not part of the bug lifecycle, but again, once you're sure, then you go into the bug lifecycle. All right. With that said, let's go into some coding today. And this is, I know there are a few newbies in here. So I would say if you do find this difficult, I will be going as basic as I can, but if you do find it difficult, just bear with me. At some point you will get catch up. So there are, I think, few people that are brand new. So you may be able to catch up to this, and it'll be fine. Okay, so we're gonna repeat, just like today, I repeated a few things that Socrates covered, I think Shanto covered, right? And I'll touch some topics that they also touch, is because I do have a passion for those topics, and I do have a different way of explaining those topics. This is not because I want to step on anyone's foot. This is because I would like to provide my point of view and my way of explaining, so that way you have all the help. You have two different ways to explain the same topics. All right. And then repeated class, we will repeat, because we want to make sure that at least a tester as a heart and core, you understand everything as what needs to be done as a tester. And this will really, really help you to be a person who can speak and who's sure about what they're saying and not basically confident. So this will bring you more confidence. Okay. So last time we left it at this is where we have one of our students actually solve the problem, where we wanted to have a mortgage calculator to calculate and tell us daily pretty much my monthly payment. If I purchase a home, it takes information like the purchase amount, interest rate, and few other information, closing cost, down payment, in order to make that kind of determination. And this can be worked on later. This brings up to the advance of Java. And what I thought that it'll be nice for today is that if we can see Java in action to do automation, right? So how can I open a browser through my code is something that I'm going to be focusing on right now. And then I'm going to be focusing on how do we write a test case for something like JetBlue, for example. Okay, so this is your JetBlue. Maybe today we're gonna try to do a test case. Let's see, let me go into the home page, and let's see, maybe something easy we want to do, because I don't want to log in. Okay, I'm gonna find the easy website. Okay, Mercury Tours. Let's see. Mercury Tours, if that exists, it no longer exists. Okay, sorry. Okay. We used to use this website as testing. Now it no longer, it changed. Somebody actually bought the domain and no longer exists. This is how the website looked like before. So this happened to be in Guru 99. So what we can do probably is that we come into this application, we click on register, okay? And then we enter only the required information. In this case, what information is required to sign up. And this application has a lot of bugs and in purpose, so that way testers like you can find them and create bugs. So when I say fill in only required information, which fields applies and which one will you fill in this case?
In this case, it looks like just username, password, and confirm password.
That's it. So today what we will do, our test case is only fill in required information, click on submit. And the next thing is we're going to see thank you for registering. And this is something that we will validate. If I was never registered, then it will not show thank you for registering. One thing you just noticed, did anybody notice a bug just a second ago?
Yes. You put your username, password.
I didn't put anything whatsoever here, and I just click submit, and it says thank you for registering. So what just happened is that it takes empty string also, empty, empty, empty. This is the program sees it as like this, empty, empty. So developers who did the backend probably didn't do leave this for us so that we can find as a bug. Okay. This is a testing website, so keep in mind a lot of the things that were left off is because it is for you to go in and do some testing. So this was a bug that we just discovered, but in our case we want a happy path. What is a happy path in test case?
Maybe if it is work.
Happy path is basically something that will work in a something that doesn't need negative data, or something that we are basically saying, okay, though the positive workflow, right? So user come in and enter information, submit. This is something we expect. That is a happy path. Now we don't expect user not to enter anything and click submit. That is a negative, scenarios. So we will just do a happy scenario. The main important thing here is that being able to do it through our code, not myself going in here. So I'm going to keep that away from us right now, and we will do a few things. There will be a few things that I need to mention and make sure that we get it. First of all, learning Java is a project. We have to leave that alone because it's just a simple Java project. We have to go into, let me just move these things around. We have to go to file and create a new project. Okay, new project, and make sure you guys can see all of the screens that I'm showing. Okay. The first thing we did last time is Java project. We're going to do Maven project. What is Maven? Maven is a dependency management tool. And what it does, it manages dependencies. In order for us to control a browser with Java, we need to make sure that we have Selenium, which is a library that was created with Java. Okay, so we need to have that library. And now Maven will help us to install the library without doing it manually. And I'm going to show that manually also at some point, but today's class is just for excitement. If you don't understand, that's fine. And we're going to continue to do that. So like I said, today's class, this is it for people, somebody, let's say the last two homeworks you guys finished and you're ready to go. This may be interesting, but also this will be interesting for everybody. If you don't understand coding, just focus on what automation is, okay? How we automate. The next thing is I'm going to click next. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say first automated test, okay? Name. First automated test with Selenium. So, and then we're going to finish. I'm going to open a new window so I can disregard the previous window. As soon as, okay, so you see the other window with Java, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to probably put it to the side. We'll come back to this when we continue with our Java classes. But also part of this, we're going to be doing some Java. Okay, so right off the bat, you see some differences. Okay, Java versus here, you can see that we have two folders within src source file. We got a Java and we got ourselves another Java. So what is the difference? This is main, where we're going to keep things like utility, and this is where we're going to keep our test. So we're going to write our test right here. And then we have a pom.xml. When you create a Maven project, it will create a pom.xml. So if you don't see this M with the pom.xml in your IDE, which is your IntelliJ, then you don't have a Maven project. You have to delete it and just create it again. Okay. So now one thing for sure is that Maven is here to help us to manage our dependency. And remember what I talked about Selenium? Selenium is your friend who is going to tell the browser what to do. It's basically going to take total control of your browser. So now in order to get Selenium, we're going to go on a website. We're going to go to Google first, google.com, and we're going to write Selenium Maven repository, right? And here we're going to go into Maven repository, where it will tell us how to get Selenium in Java, Selenium with Java. Okay, so this is what we need. We click on that. We have many versions of Selenium. Okay, many. As you can see, started off long time ago. So different, you can get any version you need if you like, but I will choose to be safe. I will not choose alpha and beta version. I will probably choose like 4.0 or 4.0.4.1, maybe this one. If it doesn't work well, I'll choose something else, but you can probably look at the usages of the number to see which one is less bug. For example, this one is highly used is because this is still stable. Okay, this is a stable version, and you can choose for your company to say, okay, we're going to remain on 3.1 until we see more people jumping in to use 4.1. But in our case, we'll just use 4.1. We'll see what happens. Okay. So now you see Maven right here. You have many other version control, dependency management tool, but this one is for Maven. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, Control C, and it's going to be fast. It's going to be fast. You may feel like, oh, he just spoofed us. If you feel like that, don't worry about it. We're going to get back to this. We're going to do it from scratch. And this is just for me to give you some excitements coming forward. So that way, you know what's coming after you finish your Java classes. Okay. I like to give sneak peeks, and this is going to be one. Dependency is going to be inside of dependencies, CIES, I believe, if I got it correct spelling. And then I have to have a close right there. So opening and closing. Okay. So think about this way. Okay, let me fix the code. There we go. Prettify that code. Dependencies contain dependency. Now I can have more and more dependencies. Now you can see all of a sudden it's red. Anytime you see red on your IDE, that means it wants to tell you something. If I click on it, and if I click on this red thing, it says Maven model inspection option, blah, 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 this and that, right? So we don't want any of these. That just means we didn't build it, okay? Maven allows you to install Selenium automatically as long as you copy this XML and put it into the pom.xml. So now, guys, who can control a browser, Java or Maven? Sorry, Java or Selenium?
Selenium.
Selenium, right? Okay, so that's why we have Selenium. Now, why do we need Java though?
So you can code.
Java is the language. Selenium cannot tell the browser what to do.
Yeah, because we're telling what to do, and Java is a way for us to communicate with Selenium. Okay. All right. So this is red. It's good. So far, so good. If I click on this guy, it says load Maven changes. We've just made changes to the Maven repository and Maven dependencies, and we want to load this Selenium. So I'm gonna just right now, you see, look, external libraries, there's nothing except for Java. Just keep that in mind. Java, JDK, that's it. Okay, there's nothing else in external libraries. When I do this, it will automatically download and put the libraries in here. Okay, and let me go ahead and click on that. And as you can see in the bottom right here, resolving dependencies. Okay, first automated test. And at some point we should see this red goes away. If I did the spelling correctly here, I don't know, I'll check. All right, it went away just like I predicted. And if you click in here, you can see we got Maven, we got other things. I just want to see where my Selenium is. Java. Selenium gotta be somewhere here. Okay, 1 second. Maven. Okay, Maven. Okay, there's 2 ways to check that. Let's see. Maven. Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay, I was worried for a second, so nobody is helping me with this and finding. So right here. Okay. So as you can see, Selenium is right here. Selenium 4.111. That's exactly what we asked for, and we have it. Now, the first thing, just like when you test, this is a framework that we're building. We just added a library of Java, and that will do something for us, right? So the first thing what I will do is that go into test, create a Java class, okay? And I'm gonna give it a name. I'm gonna give it first automated test, something like that. I don't know. Now, if I create something like this, tell me what am I doing wrong? People that already did some Java class, what am I doing wrong here? Is this name correct? what it is that is wrong here. There's something wrong. Let's just say it's a hint.
I think the first will be F capital.
Exactly, because a class name can never be starting with lowercase in Java. Okay, so if you did Java class, if you're going into Java, this is your first Java class ever, just know that class name should not be lowercase. Okay, so enter, and now we see something very similar, very familiar to us, right? We did this last 3 classes. For those who didn't do last 3 classes, this is still, you know, just make sure you pay attention, but you don't have to understand everything on the first bat. So now, what do we have to do to check Selenium works correctly and Java works correctly? First thing is we need a main class, right? So Java main class, so that way it reads the code, right? That's the first thing. And what is the first main class? Do you guys remember main method? Don't we have to do something like public
static
Public class main.
public and static, right?
void main.
Main. Okay, good. At least one of you guys remember. That's good enough for me. That means we did something correct. And then args. See, I'm not even okay. So now, so far so good. You see, I can run it. The first thing first, I want to see if my Java is working fine. Okay, so I'm going to do system dot, remember system dot out
Dot println.
and I'm just going to print something. Let's say welcome, something like that. Welcome to automated test, something like this. We'll change this later. Okay, I'm going to just run it very quickly to see if it works. If this works, that means our Java is good. Now I want to see if Selenium works. Okay, if Selenium works, that means it'll open a browser for me. Okay, so that means I'm gonna like something like this, open Chrome for me, open Chrome browser for me. Okay, that's the first thing. If I want to open a Chrome browser, I'm gonna write some code. You may not recognize it, but just understand that this is how you open a browser. Okay, so web driver. If I say web driver and it's telling me it exists in Selenium, this is where it exists, I already have my answer. I know Selenium is working. Okay, so I'm going to say web driver and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say browser. This is my browser and I'm going to say new. I'm actually calling WebDriver class and I'm going to be basically getting the object within from that class. Okay, and then so WebDriver, browser, new, we want Chrome driver, right? So Chrome driver, I can have Chromium driver, either one. Chromium version is lighter, it is for developer usage, and Chrome version is for regular general public. So we can use whatever we want. I think Chromium will be easier to deal with because it already comes within the repository, within the code, but we'll do Chrome browser just so because everybody is familiar with it. Okay, I'm going to run this. It will tell me a error because in this case, this should open up a browser and that error will fix it together. Okay, run, and now it should kind of do something, and boom, we have our very first error into this IDE. Before we saw this error, but it wasn't in here. Okay, so notice how the breakdown of this error message is your friend. Anytime you make mistakes, you read it, you understand it, and then you fix it. Okay, that's how it's gonna be. Don't panic, don't leave this and say I quit. As soon as you see red, it could be something very small. In this case, it says the path to the driver executable path, the driver must be set to webdriver.comdriver.driver. This is a very familiar message. I know how to fix it, but I'm going to show you how to find the fix for yourself on your own without calling me. Right now, this happens is because we want to open a Chrome driver. Chrome driver is not a browser. Chrome driver is actually allows us to control the browser, but Chrome driver is a separate file that you will have to install in your machine in order to control Chrome driver. How do you get Chrome driver? And I will show you that. You just go to Google. Okay, so for example, go to google.com. Oh, going to Gmail. Okay, just write down Chrome driver. Chrome driver. And you see Google itself created this website, so you can download Chrome drivers. Now there are 3 variations of Chrome driver. One is 97, 98, 99. Which one do you need? How do you determine? You have to go to your Chrome and find out which version do you have. As you can see right here, for me is 98, so I need 98. It has to match the version of Chrome you have installed in your computer in order to make it work. Okay, so now let me get out of this real quick. I have 98, so I'm going to install that first. Okay, so for me it's Mac. I'm going to download this. As you can see right here, I'm going to click on it. It will probably extract it for me. And now what I will do, I will put this somewhere. I'll put, you see the Chrome driver, I actually unzipped it, and now I can put it in anywhere I want. Okay, so instead of putting anywhere else, I'll put it directly into the repository here. I'm going to create a path and I'm going to put everything there. Okay, so in here I can say something like I want to create a directory. I want to say drivers. Okay, this is where I'm going to put all the drivers. In the drivers, I want to say something like another directory, Chrome drivers. This is where I know I have my Chrome driver. And now this is where I'm going to paste the one that I just downloaded. Okay, I'm going to refactor this and done. So now I know that my Chrome executable, this is executable file, is already in this location. I did nothing crazy here. This is no code. All I did is create a 2 folder, and then this is just for the organization of your files to make sure it looks nice, right? I could have just put it anywhere I wanted to. So now that this is already done, I can say I need to specify where that is, so that way it understand exactly where it is to run my tests. First thing first, I'll copy this. This is the first argument. It says we need to do that. But again, you know what? I'm going to show you how to find a fix for this on your own. So I'm going to copy this error message, and I want to see if anybody else in the world have the same issue. Okay. Go into your web browser, type it in, and seems like not only me, but there is a lot of people out there have this issue since 2017, or even like you can look for the older version of that. So now if you come across this type of thing, this is in Java, so that's good, but make sure you are in Java, right? Now the solution to this is pretty slick, right? Somebody said driver path should be set before browser is launched. So our driver is in here, and this is located somewhere, and it's a path that we provide before we can even do anything, before we can launch our browser. As you can see, this guy tried to do the same thing. So I have my fix right here. I can just copy this thing and use it, but I would like to explain to you guys before copying and pasting. Okay, so now we will write some steps. We're going to say provide driver path, right, in order to open the browser before we can open. So in order to provide that, remember system.out, something like that. System, we're going to say, and there is so many other options. I'm going to do S, and then now we got set properties. We're going to do set property, and we're going to use this. In set property, it takes argument. Inside, it takes something. Okay, it takes 2 arguments, number 1, and then we got number 2, and then we end our arguments, right? There's 2 different arguments that it takes. The first argument is going to be this. You're very much specifying this is a Chrome driver. You're making it known this is a Chrome driver. That's where, and where is this Chrome driver? Right here. So I'm going to right click, copy path. Okay, so right click, I'm going to say copy path right here, and I'm going to get, for now, I'm going to get the path from content root is, but if it doesn't work, you can always get absolute path. Absolute path is longer. Content root should work actually, but if it doesn't, then we can always okay, so this is what I did so far, and I'm gonna run it, and let's see what happens, right? And if it opens the browser, then we are good to go. Okay, I can right click run, or I can just click in here. In this case, I want to see where this is running. Okay, now for those who's using Mac, you're going to see a warning just like this. Okay, Chrome driver cannot be opened because the developer cannot be verified, even though Google actually created that. So now in this case, what do you have to do? the first time users on Mac, these are the steps for you. Okay, you go into your setting, you open up the setting, you first cancel this out, go to the security, never mind the picture, that is a very long time ago, and then we will go into general, and then all of a sudden you see this warning. It's like, hey, Chrome driver was blocked. Okay, so you're going to say allow anyway. Okay, and now I'm going to run it one more time, and it's going to probably ask me to do something else. And now it says you want to open or move it to trash. Obviously you want to do open, right? You want to open Chrome driver, so you're going to click on open, and let's see where it opens. My screen is pretty big, so I'm gonna have to bring it to you guys. Okay, it's opening. As you can see, a blank Chrome has opened, and completely brand new. It has no profile or nothing, right? It's a brand new Chrome just opened for you. Okay, now you, at this point, Chrome driver, and you see Chrome is being controlled by automated test software right there. Okay, this is a validation to you that, okay, your automation is working. Now let's say I just exit out. I don't want this. Okay, I just remove that. Now the first thing you want to do is that you want to say you want to go somewhere. You want to go to a URL. Remember the test case we came up with earlier, the test case that we wrote. So now, as you can see, if I say browser, it already finds it as a variable because we created right here. It's a WebDriver variable. The data type for that is WebDriver. Okay, so that means we know browser is equal to a WebDriver, which is a Chrome driver. We do dot, and we're going to use get. Get is a method from Selenium. Get was created for you to use to go to any URL. Now somebody tell me, I'm going to put the URL into a variable. So now somebody give me a syntax on line number 14 to create a variable for the URL. Okay, so let's say, like, let me find the URL first. All right, this is not it. No, where did my URL go? The one that we're supposed to be testing, which is, all right, this is our URL. First we go into the home page. Okay, sorry, register, not a register. So I'm going to go to home page. This is our URL. Okay, this is our base URL, and I want to put this into a variable so I can use it. Okay, this is my variable. What I will do, for those who didn't remember, I need to say string, and I need to say URL. That's it. Once that is that, I can just simply put it in here and it'll go. Now, could I have done this differently? Any other how that I could have done, right? Because you create a variable, you're calling it like this, but I just could have simply just do this, because this get method takes a string. Okay, so I'm going to just put the string directly, and this will be as good as before, and it'll do the same work. Okay, so now you may say, okay, so then why don't we do this? This is probably not a cleaner way. You want to create some variables, so later when you need the same URL, you can use it, you can reuse it, and then things like that. But for now, we don't reuse, so we're fine. I'm going to run this test to make sure it goes up to that point, and then we move forward. All right, it should probably open up somewhere here. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna actually, since it's opening up there, I'm gonna move my screen so a little bit up. Okay, can you guys see it just opened up? Okay, I'm gonna run it one more time so you guys can see in action. Okay, okay, and I'm not doing it, my cursor is right here for those who doesn't believe. All right, line number 14, we are able to open. Okay, as a automation person, the first thing we do when we visit a page, we want to make sure that we're in the right page. Okay, we check for something to make sure that it validates we're in the right page. Okay, now remember we said we're going to click on register. Okay, so let's just create a simple thing, because we're going to go, the first step is click on register, second is enter this information, and then submit. Okay, now to click on register, I need to be able to do it very much the programmatical way. And I'm going to show you, you don't know this, but I'm going to show you, and this is how it's going to be for any link in the future. So anytime you have to click on a link, this is a link. How do I know this? How do I know this is a link, guys?
The blue text in the underline?
Blue text and underline, I know this is a link. But let's say blue text and underline was a clever way for developers to mimic the link. What other ways can I find out if this is a link?
By clicking on it and checking.
Yeah.
Clicking on, okay, aside from clicking on it, what else?
Does it turn into a hand sign, like a cursor?
That's maybe another way, but what else? Any other way?
There's a link at the bottom left that pops up. If like that wasn't a proper link, I don't think anything will pop
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, so that's one. That is another way. And then the last way that I'm going to show you is more like looking into the code, okay? Remember I told you guys, okay, so I'm going to select this guy. This is a selector. You use this to select exactly which element. Everything in this page is an element. This is a link element, and I clicked on it, and now it opened up for me. This is your HTML code. In HTML, a tag name, for example, this is a tag. If the tag starts with A and it has href, that's a link. Okay, if a tag was intended for links, let's just keep that in mind and sync that in, and that's it. There is no debate about this. Okay, so when you have a tag on your code, that means you can safely assume this is a link, and Selenium will recognize this as a link. Now, link will have text. Link text usually is unique because you're not going to see same link twice in a page. You may, but link text is usually unique. This is your link text, not this one. Whatever you see here visually is not what we go by. We go by what we see here, the same text. So now I'm going to copy this, because what I want to do, I want to click on this link by using its text. Okay, and there's many ways you can click on it. So the first thing first, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say browser. Since you already went to this website, continue from there, right? The reason why it will continue from there, because this is the same instance. This is the same browser being carried around, okay? Same driver instance. So that's why it's going to left off on the line number 15 is going to left off here. It already went to the page. So now you can say browser, find me something, okay? If I want to find only one thing, I will select the first one. If I want to find many things, I will use the second one because it has an S. So pretty revealing in terms of your method. Okay, so this is again coming from Selenium. This will be something that you're not going to find explanation for it, but you will have to understand this is the way that you're going to find items within a page. Okay, now once you're here, it requires some parameters. It requires, so for example, if you tell somebody, hey, find me something, you need to provide what and where. So two items it needs, what and where. It already knows that you are into this page. So now it will say, what do you need and where? So we're going to say by, okay. And we're going to say by link text, right? By link. As you can see, it just giving me the option. So I'm going to say by link text, this is what I want to find. And then I'm going to provide the location. And I'm going to say any link that has a name. So link text, any link that has a name, register. That's what I want to find. Once I find that, you see opening, opening, and closing, but still red. Why? Is because we're not done. So dot. Once I put a dot, I can do various things. After this much, after the find, it will be action classes. We can do a click, right? So we can just click on click. That's it. Now it will go and click on the link. Okay, let's see it in action, and then we move forward after that. Okay, maybe we should have put a wait so we can see properly, because it's going to be fast. Okay, so did you just see what happened? It just super fast for some reason. It was crazy fast because obviously it was done by machine. And when we landed in that page, it brought us to registration page because we click on register. The next thing we want to do, we want to enter username, password, and confirm password. All three, even though this is a password field, all three are considered the same as input field. How do I know this is input? Inspect element. Okay, I'm going to move it to the side. Let's just look at it. This is an input field right here. Now let's look at the next. Even the password is an input. Okay, so we will have the same treatment for all three fields. The different treatment will be for submit. This is a button. Okay, how do I know this is a button? You click on it, and now you see this is actually the way they wrote is an input, but for us it's a button. So we're going to use name and submit as a type to click on this button after we're done. Okay, so you'll see sometimes is mismatch, like they're not supposed to do it this way. It should have a proper name, proper tag, but it is not properly tagged. But that's fine. That's the developers, the way they coded this. We still will work with this the way whatever is given to us for automation. So far so good. Any question, you guys? We're able to. The important part here is we can click on it and we're able to run our test and be able to open a browser, and that does few things for us so far, right? It opens up the registration page. Do we want to take a 1 second break and just say, okay, let's get back, and we don't want to go any further? Maybe we need to do something else. It's not a problem at all. This is, again, this is not to scare you. This is just to show you at some point you will be doing this. At some point, this is the end goal of learning Java as a skill set. Okay. Any questions so far? Everybody's still here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought people left when I was.
No. I'm observing. I'm here.
Okay. All right. So that's good since everybody's here.
It looks very complicated.
Yes, but this is not as complicated as Java, because look, Selenium is doing most of your work, heavy work. All you got to know what to use. For example, to get any to get any URL, you just use this guy. Okay. To get to any elements on a page, you just use this guy. Okay. You just have to tell them what it is that you want. There's many ways. Obviously, I will at some point break down everything to you and we go from there. But this is, again, I think it's good to realize where we want to be in terms of automated test. Okay.
Excuse me, I have a quick question. So when we start working like in the real world, did they give any hands out at the beginning, or do we have to memorize like everything,
Well, when you get a job as an engineer, remember, engineer has a best friend. QA engineer or automation or even developer, a software engineer, you can consider yourself as a software engineer because you write code for testing. It's same as, somebody's writing code for development. It's pretty much a very similar job. But what I'm saying is everybody that does coding has a best friend that will tell them exactly what they need. And you can have your best friend at work too.
Oh, okay. Because that seems,
No, that's not me. I'm not going to.
That's Google, my best friend.
Exactly. Google is your best friend. So now I will give you an example. Let's say you just didn't know like how to find this, like clicking on a link, you just didn't know. So you just have to know how to search it. Okay. You just have to know how to, everything is out there. You just have to know how to grab it. So I'm going to write a few keywords to find that. Selenium, right? Click on a link using text. Okay. And then I'm just going to put another keyword because I'm working with Java. So I'm going to say Java. And now I didn't even have to go into anything. It's just telling me that I can do it using XPath and I can put this, but this just looks much more complicated. Obviously, this is going to work. Okay. I will click on that and people will give you multiple solutions. So this is the solution that I was given, right? No, I gave you guys, but this is for a list, meaning more than one link. Okay. We don't need that. We need just one single link. Okay. So as you can see, this is the one. Find element by link text, and the link text is add, and you just click on it. So if you really read, like this is another way. This is another way to do the same thing, but this is probably the cleaner way that you can do the same work, right? Everything is out there. And if you're doing this and you're researching and you're writing your code and somebody in your back came back and say, oh, wait a minute, why are you researching? Why are you going to Google? You're going to say, well, everybody does it, right? This is what we do. We do research. You cannot possibly memorize everything. You cannot possibly do that. And you can be honest about it. You can tell them, yeah, I'm not going to memorize everything, but I know how to use it. That's it. That's about it. But we don't say that in an interview, by the way. We try to be more smart in an interview. We try to make sure that we know our stuff. And we'll do such things to kind of make ourselves look smart. By that time, you will already be ready with it. You will already know basic of writing tests. So you're gonna be fine. But at least at work, you can be honest after you get hired and say, hey, I need to revisit, I need to refresh, I need to go and watch some YouTube videos, and that's fine. YouTube, Google, whatever, by all means. Anything about learning, they will not be able to criticize you on those. All right. Let's continue. And again, like I said, Google is your best friend. Anything is there. Chances are the questions that you have for me is already out there as an answer, and somebody probably explain even better than me. Okay, so let's just finish this as for today, so that way we have something finished. The next class, guys, I'm gonna be going a bit more advanced into Java, and I'm gonna cover the next class. I think I'm gonna try to finish Java, which is again basic Java. I don't want to say everything in Java, but the next class that I will do, I will include a pretty much summary version of what we have done so far for the new people, so that can get up to speed. And then I will do some advanced, like dealing with hash map, dealing with array, and then inheritance and making page object pattern, those. And then we're going to be done with Java. And then I'm going to give you guys maybe a final project with Java that you'll need to finish. And then we move on with only Selenium. Now at that point, Selenium will be a piece of cake for you because you know Java. Anybody knows Java, Selenium should be easier. It's just that you need to start to get familiar with the namings. So how do you go to a URL? You use get. How do you find an element? You use find elements. And so these names you have to kind of get familiar with in order to be able to continue to write tests. All right. So now we already know how to deal with a link. Okay. The next thing we need to do is write something, right? So I'm going to say input. Okay, input text, right? So this is the input field, and we want to input text into username and password. Input text in username FIELD, okay, field. That's the first thing. So now what I need is I need to find out the identification of this username field. That's the first thing, because I need to find that element. So I'm going to say browser, please find me something. Okay, browser. And why do we even name browser? Why not something else? I'm gonna change the name to driver, just to make sure that this is you defined. This is us as a automation person defined. This is just a variable. Okay, whatever you want to say, you can say D and then continue to use D. So driver, please do something for me, right? Find, please first find me an element, and I'm gonna say by dot. This time, what I can find by, I don't know. I need to look into this to find this element. In order to find this element, I'll inspect it first. When I do inspection, I go and click on this guy and specifically click on the input field. I don't click on the label. This is a label. This is a separate element. Okay, so we don't use labels. If we do interaction on a field, we need actual field. So if I click on it, you see how it highlighted. This is the right correct field. The name of this field is email. ID is also email. So now ID and name both is recognized by Selenium. So I can say Selenium find me by ID right there. So, okay. And then you say, okay, what is the ID number? Okay. Then at this point I put the ID. And the next thing is I'm going to say, I want to type something. I want to mimic actual user. So I'm going to use something called send keys. What send keys does is mimics human behavior of typing. It doesn't just go in the back and type something. It will type one character at a time, just like a human, just like this. Okay. And that's why Selenium is such an important tool, is because we don't want to replace human. We want to mimic everything that human can do with Selenium. So that way our automated test is more accurate. Because why? Because this application will be used by human. So it is very important that the test is mimicking human, even though we are writing automated tests. All right, so now, and here send keys takes a string. It's a send keys to whatever keys to send. Let's say my keys will be, I'm going to put something like, let's say auto user at, let's say testmail.com. This is my username. And now I want to do the same thing for the password fields. Okay. And so now let's open up the, so I want to do the same thing for these two fields. These are separate fields, not a single field. So I'm going to go ahead and find out the ID. The ID, it doesn't have an ID. Okay. This one doesn't have an ID, but it does have a name. Can I use a name? I think I can, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to write a comment for my fellow QA engineers so they can understand. Enter password, okay? And I'm going to say, driver, please find me something. The first one, just one thing. And it's a by. Let's see if it finds by name. Looks like name is an option for me. And it says, what is the name? And in my case, our name is password, okay? I'm going to paste it. Notice how I copy and paste. I could have just typed it. There are a few things you do not type it, okay? So for example, the names and IDs and things like that, because if you type it, you may make a mistake with uppercase, lowercase, and at the end, you will be the person who doesn't know what is wrong with it, you know? So it's better to just copy paste few things that you need to. Once that is done, we wanted to do the same thing, same keys, password. I will just come up with some sort of password, which is, let's say, PASS password at, let's say 1234. That is my password. Now I need the same thing for confirm password. I'll copy and it says confirm. There's another field. Okay, enter confirm password, and let's see what the confirm password name is, name or ID, whatever it is that we need to use. And it says the name is confirm password. Okay, so that's great. And then I will change the name. So that way it enters both. We're going to do a quick run before we finish our test case. Our test case is almost done. All right, notice what happened just right there, down there. Okay, so now we haven't clicked on submit yet. In this case, we're going to click on submit. Does that complete our test case? Yes or no, and why or why not? Think about it. You got times. In the meantime, let me just do my thing. All right, I need to know the. Does it complete your test case? That's my question. Can we consider that as a test case if we click on submit and it's done? Can we consider that as a test case? If we can, then why? And if we cannot, then why not?
We can because we were able to sign up without putting in any other information.
So you're saying that if you are let's say you're a teacher in high school and you have 5 students who did the exam, you're saying they did the exam, but you will not do the check and say everybody's passed. That's what you're saying.
We have to submit, I believe, right? And
So no, but let's say I'm comparing with something in real world so we can kind of analyze this. You click on submit and you said, okay, I'm done. All right. What just happened here is that your student submitted the homework and you're saying everybody passed.
You have to test it.
So now you will never know who failed.
You have to test.
So after submission, don't you want to verify that, okay, it actually went through? What Selenium will not do, remember, program will not assume things and say, okay, maybe this guy meant this, so I'm going to do this for you. No, it will not do that extra work. This is not a friend, right? This is strictly business. Whatever you ask, it will do it. Whatever you don't ask, it will not do it. That's the thing that you have to sink in. Here, program doesn't really have a mindset of a friend who will, let's say you leave the light on and you left, your friend will come and turn it off. But if you tell the program, okay, when I leave, doesn't matter, just, leave it what it is, it will not think for you. It will not say, okay, you know what, maybe it's going to charge him $50 for the night because of the light on. We're going to go ahead and, turn it off. So, all right. So with that said, a test case, whether it's manual or automation, if it doesn't have validation at the end, it is not a test case. Okay, whether that is an automated test or manual test. So in this case, remember we talked about it in the beginning. In this test case, once I click on submit, I want to verify if these texts exist onto the next page. Only then I know that I clicked and after that this page showed up. Right? If this wasn't, if there was no bug, right? In theory, if there was no bug, then this text would only show if somebody signed up. Thank you for registering will not show unless somebody signed up. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Okay, so then you verify this. So you have to kind of like, you have to make sure that you are verifying something. The other thing is that your name, your username is this. So if somebody signed up and they have a username, for example, in this case is dot because we haven't put anything. But if we did put something and we signed up, like for example, this, you know, and then submit. Oh, okay, it does validation. It does matches. It basically matches, does something. But now it says your username is this. So if I check for this note text, does it also validate that I registered, agreed or disagree?
Yes.
Okay, so now you have two ways to do it. You as an engineer choose which one is more easier for you, or at least which one is more reliable for you. Okay, these are few decisions that we make. Okay, we don't have somebody to come and tell us write your code this way or that way. We do it the way that we feel the best and suits the situation. Okay, with that said, I'm going to click on it. In order to click on it, I need to know the name. This has a name. It's an input, unfortunately, but it has a name as submit. So I'm going to use the name just like before. But this time I'm going to go ahead and instead of inputting, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and click on it. Dot click. Okay. And let's see if it works up to that much. And then what we will do is the validation, because the test case is not complete. These are test steps, so far test steps. Okay, if any of these fails, it will not report to you saying something failed. So then what is a good use of your automated test? It will always pass. It will not ever complain, even if there is an issue. And that's why we have to step in and say, okay, if you don't see this, that means it's an issue. We have to tell it what is an issue and what is not. Okay, so you see how this happened. Now I will say, if it says thank you for registering, then we are good to go. So I'm going to first create an expected result somewhere as a string expected. Okay, expected text for registration and I'm going to be more relevant with name, Reggie, right? For registrations. And this is a string so far, right? Expected text, this is the name, and we can use this to validate. This is what we're expecting, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so if this is what we are expecting, we can now use some if and else, right? We can say if, let's see, if there is a condition, if driver, we're gonna say driver, please go do something. Okay, so let's see actual text. We gotta find the actual text, right? So actual match the actual text basically. So it's gonna be true. So that means Boolean. Remember, Boolean. So match. We're gonna say match on page. On page. Expected result should be scale lowercase. Okay, match on page. We're gonna say driver, find this thing in the page and let us know if it's there or not. So this guy will come back as true if it finds it. If this text on the page is found, it'll come back and say true. That's it. That's all it's gonna say. It's not gonna say I found, thank you for registering. It'll just say true. If it doesn't find it, it'll say false. That's it. We're gonna say, instead of find element, this time we're gonna say get everything from the page. So we're saying driver, please get everything from the page, everything, all of it. And then I want you to search the page. I'm going to say search the page. I'm going to say contains, means if anywhere in the page contains this expected result, okay, then this is going to return true. So now we can say if this is already, we know if it's true, then it will say this. If that's the case, I'm going to say system.out.println, and I'm going to say test okay, passed. And then we can probably put something here, right? In this case, we're going to say plus something, found text on page, and I'm going to say plus something like that. Let's say expected. That's it. What happens if it doesn't find it, right? So this is where the problem. So I'm going to say else. And if that's the problem, then I'm going to say that test failed. And we're going to test our own work later. Did not find, right? So did not find whatever text, right? So let's run it. This now completes the test case, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and run this real quick. And last thing that we need to do, I'm gonna also tell you, is that once the test is finished, we would like to close that browser because the browser is still hanging around. We don't need it, party's over, right? We just don't need this anymore. So we need to destroy this as soon as the test is finished. So what we can do in here is say, close the browser. We can say driver, do me a favor, close it, okay? That's it. We can also say driver, do me a favor. Sometimes you open more than one browser, so you can say driver.quit. That means it will not only close the current browser, it will also close everything else associated with this driver, okay? So now this is an interview question. What is the difference between close and quit? This is close only current browser. This is close everything. All right, so let's go ahead and run it one more time to see this in action. Okay, so what happened is that found text on page. Thank you for registration, test pass. Now, how do you know this test is not going to pass all the time? How do you know that? Can we test this code somehow to see if it's working properly? Anybody idea?
We
How do
can
you know
change
this?
the string value, then we can do it.
Okay, so we will put a string value like this one. Thank you for registering. Something that is not even there. That means we should be seeing it failed. Yes. So let's say instead of thank you, we're gonna say something like this. This text should not be even there on the page. The whole string should not be there. Agree?
Yes.
We're looking for this text. All right. So if that is the case, then our test should fail. And if it doesn't fail, that means my test is lying to me, which means I have written a test that doesn't do nothing. It doesn't really do anything at all. It is no good. So the way we do our testing, we also have to make sure that our test is doing the right thing at all times. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this. And if it does report it to me saying, hey, I didn't find this thing, then we are all good to go. It says test failed, did not find this thing, okay, that you're looking for on the page. Is that a true or false? It didn't find this. Is that a good test or bad test?
Now I'm confused. What happened?
Because it's not passed.
Yeah, this is a good test because now obviously this is not even there. So we don't have expectation to have this passing. We know that it should fail. And that is a good thing. Since it failed, which is a good thing because our test is accurate. Okay. So anything else on the page you want to check? Like, for example, let's go back.
I was thinking how to check the name and the password.
That is not necessary, right? You just want to know, like, anybody can log in. Like, think about your goal. Think about the goal of your test case. You just want to know the registration works or not. Let's say, right? Happy path. If you see, we already talked about it. If we see this, that means it works. That's it. That's what we are anchoring ourselves to. If this text there, then we consider it passed. That's it, period. That's the decision we make. We can always change. We can say, if this guy's there, then it passes. Okay, we can change to whatever we want. So we can probably like choose this, but I want to see if this text, sometimes the text is like divided into two portions, then it will not check the whole thing at once. Okay, so we have to look through this first. If you see failures, because if I click on it, notice what happened right here. It is divided into two different portions. It has a line break. Okay, so now it will, if you just copy the whole thing and say I want to see the whole thing as a string, it will not find it because there is a line break in the code. What you can do is that, okay, since we registered with Autotest as an email, If the email is somewhere there, okay, then we can consider that this test is a pass. Okay, so all I have to do is change the email, because that's the email we used. If this email shows up onto that page, that means we must have registered correctly. And now we're going to run it. Okay, let's see, it's opening up and it's running. It goes and does these things, boom, and test pass found, text on the page, auto test this. Okay. So now if this website, I'm just gonna finish with a good note. We went over by 30 minutes, and I hope this was a little bit exciting for you. If it was confusing, but just know that this is where we're going to be at some point. I don't want you to get scared by this, but the intention was to make sure that some of you guys should be excited that this is where we're heading to. We still have building blocks. We will still have to go through the basics to be where we are. This is nothing sophisticated yet, okay? But what I was trying to say is that when you have, okay, so let me see what I was talking about. All right, let me close this once first real quick. Okay, so we went over a lot of, I guess, like almost half an hour. I don't want to cause more time and, you know, take more of your time. What I want to do the next class, at least for me, and that's why Socrates and Shanto is not doing their classes, is because we agreed that we don't want to overwhelm you guys with 3 or 4 things at a time, because Java is like the big portion of this course. And I'm trying to be going as slow and trying to make as fun as I can on the way. So that way we don't end up burning ourselves and kind of, you know, think about give up. So if I need to repeat classes, guys, just let me know and say, look, can we go ahead and do the first class? Can we go and do the second class? I want to make sure that you guys are solid into the building blocks of Java and building blocks of Selenium, so we can start to write some automated tests. And that will be my final project. And then obviously in about a week after the next class, you're going to see Shanta is doing his subjects on the database, and Socrates is going to do his subject onto more into test planning, more into think like a tester, and also feel that you're a very important person in your team rather than feeling like you don't know much, right? So that's his job, to make sure that you get more critical thinking skills and understanding the process of testing. But just one thing, again, just give us feedback and say, hey, look, we didn't understand this, we're gonna need help. Keep in mind, this subject also something that Socrates and Shanta both know. You know, they did this in their career as well, so they have their perspective. So if anything, you guys can also sit down with them to cover some of these items that I covered today. With Shanto, I think he will probably set up some extra classes this week or next week. He mentioned that he was going to do a few extra classes to make sure that you guys get all the help you need. And just keep that in mind. Whatever you need, you know, we're here. And if this is something you feel that is too hard, you don't understand, difficult, it will get easier if we repeat. If we repeat the first time, people see it, they don't understand, is perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal to say, okay, I don't get this. This is crazy. You know, I didn't get it on the first try, right? So I don't expect you to get it on the first try.
Teacher, please repeat it, please.
We definitely will repeat it. Next class, I'm going to do, maybe I'm going to repeat the first 2 classes, because the basic building blocks of Java is very important, more important than going into advanced, at least what I think. And at least we can go into programming and writing some tests. So we can use some things that we learn in Java. So for example, Boolean, how to declare a Boolean variable, line number 24, how to declare a if and else statement that is number 25. Remember when we did the thing, we had array. Here we actually dealing with actual value of Boolean, and we're doing it this way. I could have also said something like this, equal to true, and it will do the same thing, because this is true and this is true. But if it's already true, do I need that extra statement? I don't think so, right? Because it will change based on what the message is, right? This will change based on that. So we don't even have to evaluate because it's already coming as a Boolean, okay? So keep that in mind. And a lot of the things that when we do the testing, when we write automated tests, you're going to be using, and that's why we showed you those building blocks of Java. Now, some people asked me last week, how do I learn Java basics? And I'm going to recommend a website that I used to use for all of my classes. Okay, I used to go there and make everybody sign up and do it together as a class. But here, what I will do is that I'm going to ask you to do that yourself. Okay. This is the website, and if you want to do this, then you have to challenge yourself. Number one is that go to catalog, and they got everything just like W3. The only difference between this website and W3 is that this one is interactive. You don't have to pay for it, just get the free version that covers the basics. That's all we need for this class. Okay, so just do the basic 16 lessons. It's the basic beginner, and it's free. So I would say do this. This one actually helps you better than W3. It explains everything properly, and this is 24 hours time to complete. So I would say take 2 days, and if you complete this, you're going to be really, really better off with Java. So if you want to do some self-study and you feel like, you know what, I don't have computer science background, I don't write code every day, and I don't feel like a coder, I don't feel like a developer, then this is for you. Okay, start this. This is going to help not only you, but also us, because now we know that you advanced yourself and we can market you better. So I would say use Code Academy, use the free version of Java, and this will give you so much more understanding. This is going to be 25 hours, but I think you have to do 2 days, 8 hours per day. What I used to do in our previous classes back in 2014, 15, 16, and I think 17, when we stopped doing this one because they want money and we started using our own material, is that before that, what I would do, it would be a 2 days class. Saturday, we would sit down early in the morning and we would finish by 6 or 7 p.m. That's like almost 10 hours. And then the next day, and then the next day. That was the proper boot camp when we did face-to-face, and we would order in food for everybody and we would just sit down and get it done. 2 days later, some people would get good understanding and some people would go back and do it again at some point to get better. So I would say, if you feel like you're that person, you have the time and you want to advance yourself, then please do this in parallel. Even if you start now and you finish by the time you get the job, you'll still be better off than nothing. Okay, something is always better than nothing. A starting point is always better than saying I'm going to do it tomorrow. So that's what I would recommend. You can also get certification and you can say I'm a Java certified if you do the pro version. These guys are well known, Code Academy, so you can always tell them, put them on the resume and tell them like I was certified by Code Academy. And that is a proud thing to say because Code Academy is pretty legit so far, right? W3 is legit. Everybody knows. Everybody in the world knows what W3 is, and that is, they also provide certification. So you can go for that as well if you think that you need some sort of certification. It's not 100% needed, but if you have it, it helps so much. With that said, guys, I don't want to take more time. It's Wednesday and we already did more than 2 hours. I will also not provide you guys with a lot of questions. This was a demo class. Think about a demo class where I will not ask you for a homework. This is for you to open your eyes and understand what's coming to you in the near future classes. You will be automating, because I've been talking about automation, but I wanted to give you an idea how we control a browser through our code. So that way you kind of get more motivated and say, okay, look, I need to get into coding. I need to get learning this. And again, when you join a company, we're not going to put you in a position where you have to write this code on the day one. You will have 6 months, okay, 6 to 4 months time before you can start to write this kind of code. Okay, so we'll also talk about that. We're not going to jump right into a position where they want a tycoon who knows how to code in automation test. Okay, you're going to go into a company where they will give you the chance to grow and learn and be able to learn from the engineers and the team. So that is our intention, because otherwise I do double the work, right? You come back, I got to get you another job. That means double the work. So it is something that we will talk about near future when we do the marketing. But for now, just know that this is where we want to be. We will make it better. This code, the way it looks, is not well organized. So we're going to do a bit more into the framework. This framework is very, very basic. So we're going to add more and more Java libraries to make it more and more commercialized. So that way it can be used at work. Okay, so the way that we're going to do by the end of my automation class, you're going to be able to take this framework and use it at work. If they don't have anything, you can actually take this and make it work over there, and it'll be your code, right? So that is the intention for today. That is all I have, and I'll see you next time. Next class, I may possibly break it down so that way we don't end up hammering you with automation and coding. I may just ask Shanto to do his part and start to do his subjects, and try to do everything, some things in parallel. A few things that are relevant we'll do in parallel, so that way it's not too boring, right? Coding sometimes gets boring. All right, any question, last minute questions, I will answer. Otherwise, we are done for the day. I will see you next time.
None so far.
All right, great. No questions. That means everybody understood. Next class, we're gonna jump into more advanced.
No, you're not understanding everything. Of course, we're jumping, but lots of questions. So, okay, today we are